People believe that the paranormal and science are separate. But what they don't know, that they are both joined together as one. Join Ben and Louisa on their quest as they bring together science, occult, and the paranormal, only on Occult, History, and Science with Ben and Lou.
Hi. You okay, everybody? Thank you for joining us.
I'm here, guys. I'm just unfortunately doing my payslip.
What's up? 1 second, people. What's up?
330.7.
You've taken 20, not 20%. You need to click on the percentage. Technology. It's good. So yeah, thank you for joining us. First of all, Friday's show. Yeah, as you noticed, we weren't out there. That is because my car is currently, well, waiting to go into the garage. It had to check over on Thursday and had to order parts in, so I can only do short journeys, which is to and from work in it. And on Friday, it happened to be that my daughter needed to go over to her dad's in Stoke. So I finished work and then drove us straight over there, which is why when we got back, it was like we've just missed the show, basically. So that's what happened there. But Damon did a little show, which is all good. Oh, Eric on.
Happy birthday, Eric.
On.
It's his birthday.
It's his birthday today. Oh, happy birthday. You know, just shouting out randomly. Okay, and Jeanette, did you go out for your Sunday roast? That is the question. Exercise. And then, yeah, last night we went investigating. We were invited over to a location for an event run by Andy Moore. Yep. Zira is on as well. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, so we went over there. It's a couple of hours drive away to a house. If you want to see the house, actually, it's on the latest season of Help My House is Haunted. It's episode 2. So you can have a look at the house on that and the people that we're with. It was really good. We thank them for hosting as well, allowing us in there. Yeah, it was a good night, wasn't it? We there's quite a few people, but we split off into 2 groups, and for each group we did the demonology, destroying the myths talk. So
We did just a short version of it.
a quick version of it, yeah, because obviously when we do it at Stoke or any other places, we tend to have a couple of hours. But this is just a shortened version, but people seem to enjoy it, and hopefully some of the people might be watching now or watching this on catch up, which is all fine. So hello, new people. Jeanette says no. Kev finally finished the shower. Excellent, good work, Kev. So yeah, it was good, wasn't it? Because I think people had their minds opened a bit, let's say, and started asking questions that they didn't even know they needed to have answers to.
Yeah, we did change a great deal of people, I will say that. People's ideas on demons were changed drastically. It was quite interesting to see the change of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, as you know, because I know we had been saying that Wild Bill was coming on Friday's show, but something had come up for him to family, so he is rescheduled for. I haven't got a diary to hand, diary's in a bag, for in a few weeks' time anyway. So Wild Bill will be on, and next week, next Friday, we have got a special going off. We've got the Harry Potter special with Damon and guest Zira, so it should be good. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that one. Something a little bit different from the other dimension there. But what we're doing tonight is we are continuing with the Occult Sciences book.
I'm taking questions as always, guys, as long as I paranormal related.
Yes. We are going on to a new chapter in this as well. My bookmark's just fallen out.
It's necromancy.
Yep.
Ooh, it is.
Tonight we are talking about necromancy in the world of the Occult Sciences Handbook. Remember, this handbook's dated from, where does it say, 1891. So just bear that in mind while I'm reading it. And Ben will translate the words into something that we can all understand a little bit better, because they tend to embellish a lot on their sentences instead of getting straight to the point.
Do you want to figure that out? We can attach his invoice to an email. Somebody already did not let me do it. Guys, don't ever go self-employed. No, you can. I'll find it.
You'll find it. Okay. Oh, Jim's on.
Hey,
Hi,
Jim.
Jim. Hey, Ben. Lou, I hope you're doing okay. Thank you. Are you too? Are you too? That makes sense. I don't know. Long, long weekend. Not much sleep last night. Zero says I actually found something new out the other day, so still geeking out. Okay. I shall begin. Oh, and your phone screen's cracked and it don't work. So, necromancy, the evocation of the souls of the dead. We have seen in the section devoted to angelology, after the 9 choirs of celestial intelligences in the pneumatic enumeration of the Kabbalists, there is the order of beautified human souls who exercise a beneficent and energizing influence on the incarnate race of man. Their chief is said to be Moses, and by their natures they are in opposition to the souls of the wicked, who are under the tyranny of Nahima. Is that right? Is that how you pronounce that one? Do you know?
Yeah, Nahima.
Nahima, the demon of impurity.
Now, just to stop you there. The reason that they state in the occultology science that it was Moses that was in charge, due to the fact that if you look at the biblical teachings when it came to them building the ark, Moses' son.
Moses didn't build the ark.
No,
That was Noah.
I'm getting all mixed up.
Yeah.
I got that mixed up last night. Sorry, guys.
You concentrate on doing that.
Basically, to finish off what I was saying, one of Noah's sons ended up summoning one of the demonics of Solomon to help him work out the mathematics for building the Noah's Ark. Basically.
Who can you summon to help you send an attachment on an email?
God knows.
Anyway. Such a classification is, to all appearance, very arbitrary and inadequate. The formal distinction between good and bad is not substantiated by present psychological experiments. But this and other doctrinal teachings of the old mystics do not belong to that portion of esoteric wisdom which it is alone rational to revive. The student should always carefully separate the ascertainable facts of the science from the theoretical structure which overlays them. The differentiation of the soul of man into a multiplicity of separable parts, even the time-honoured and reasonable distinction between the soul and the spirit, must be properly referred to the domain of speculation to which it properly belongs. As regards the subject of this chapter, a central, fundamental, and vital fact is that practical magic, in its investigations of extra-mundane worlds, has come into communication with those whom the living call dead, and that the ritual of such communication has been bequeathed by magicians to posterity. Bequeathed. Right, for the fun words, trying to get the tongue around. Many speculations concerning necromancy are reasonable. It's all right. They'd put reason and then just able on the other bit without a thing. Many hypotheses are probable, others are neither probable nor reasonable. Yet some writers appear to suppose that if we accept the fact recorded by the mystics, we are bound to accept the solution which they offer. On the other hand, it is not unreasonably urged that the men who have most investigated the psychological world have most right to opinion about it. They have indeed every right to an opinion, and their opinions must have a claim on our respect, but we need not consider them final. We hold that in the magic there is no authority but that of the pioneer who has preceded. Now the pioneer may be a beacon in the darkness, but he is not a guide infallible. The mystics have penetrated far beyond ourselves into the infinite realms of the soul, but they may not have gauged the infinite, and thus we are by no means committed to any of their absolute doctrines.
Yeah, I want this being that when this book was written and people who wrote it were all men. However, throughout history of esoteric teachings, there has been both men and women. Women holding a higher rank, the fact that they can create life, and men can't. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The counter view has been well enunciated by an esteemed collaborateur as follows. The value of psychological authority can only be gauged by equal experimental knowledge. What were you saying?
It's just the way you say it. You always produce French words well.
Well, it's in italics and everything. You know, gotta try. Oh my God. Okay. Generally speaking, the pneumatic dogmas of the Middle Ages were based on the lines of orthodox pneumatology. As we have seen, they admitted the distinction between pure and fallen angels and reproduced their spiritual histories point by point. The hierarchy of elementary spirits is foreign to Christian theology, and theology denounced them as demons. The physiological history of the human individual in its post-mortal condition is, on the other hand, substantially identical in both systems, and the higher the position of the mystic, the nearer he gravitates, in his opinions, to the accredited teachings of the great religion of the day.
Sorry.
Musical interlude. Anything to say on that point, my dear?
Well, but basically, it still states even there that Christianity demonized absolutely everything.
Yep.
Without fail.
Once more, an important point in that branch of transcendental science, which has reference to the souls of humanity, consists in the possibility of establishing that the soul survives death and preserves its intelligence and its individual being in another order of subsistence by the contrivance of an actual and conscious communication with departed men and women. The hypotheses which we have founded on this fact are excessively numerous and are sometimes suggestive and beautiful. They all have analogies with each other as well as with the Christian scheme. When estimated at their true worth, they will deserve and repay study and are rich in reflected lights. One of the explanatory hypotheses derived from the Kabbalah, which most recommends itself to esoteric students at the present day, is concerned with the existence of the fluidic envelope of the spirit, which corresponds to St. Paul's conception of a spiritual organism and is termed the astral body. An exceedingly lucid exposition of this hypothesis and of the soul's external progress has been given us by Eliphas Levi, and is fairly represents the archaic doctrine of the Hebraistic mystics.
The wording is
Oh my God.
ridiculously hard to understand.
I've never seen the word Hebraistic. Well,
It's completely baffled me because I still, even to this day, don't actually know what it is. So I'm not gonna lie, even I don't even know what that word is. And I studied the thing.
In its most extended scope, this hypothesis affirms the existence of a single substance diffused through all space, out of which the entire cosmos, with all its sentient populations, was originally developed, and into which, at the close of the grand and extreme cycle of it, will all ultimately be resolved. It is the great telesper of Hermes, oh my gosh, my eyes are burning, to his majesty, an ambient and all-penetrating substance, the first matter of aboriginal creation, the created light of Genesis. The polarization of the substance about a center produces living beings, and in man it forms the astral body or plastic mediator.
Okay.
The spirit or permanent principle of the individual, which the hypothesis apparently distinguishes from the cosmic substance and refers to a divine origin, departs at the moment of death, clothed in the astral form, which, in the case of a virtuous person, evaporates like a pure incense, but which enhances the vicious intelligence. Basically, when you die, spirit goes on.
Yes, pretty much. A lot of this book, because of how it was written, and lots of big words we use nowadays, it's easy to roll because they're small sentence. A lot of it's just opening of chests that I can use bigger words than can.
The ministry of mystical doctrine to the spiritual aspirations of man has a definite value of its own. Well, that was one in itself, isn't it? The ascent of the ladder being the revolutions of incarnations of the soul are delightfully poetical conceptions which give nourishment to the loftier energies of imagination. The legendary romances of the soul deserves to be incorporated in a volume devoted to the subject of pneumatic speculations. They are not confined to mysticism. They exist among all people, both savage and civilized. They throw great light upon comparative mythology, but it must ever be remembered that ordinary. Oh my god, I'm just going to drink a second. Sorry, I know I just had a drink, but I just got ready to go.
Have to remember, guys, this book, refer to Luke's incredibly difficult.
Ordinary psychological theories are as much in the field of speculation as are the North American traditions of travels into the land of souls. The ceremonial evocation of the departed is usually termed necromancy. This word, however, by its derivation means the art of discerning future events through communications established with the dead. It
Basically, in layman's terms, to save Luke from having to read what she's probably about to.
all right.
Basically, this form of necromancy is basically interfering with the natural progression of time and basically demanding the spirit to tell you what they have seen. Because obviously we know from how time is relative to the person, spirits that have already passed on can see both present, past, and future. And this is a problem is basically happening. And no, you can't do it to see find out what the locking numbers are.
Where was I? It is divination by the tenants of the tomb. Like Ben said, asking them to tell you what's going to happen in the future. I like that term though. Divination by tenants of the tomb.
So you're gonna do that.
No. The science of the mystics has enlarged the original significance, while popular superstition has perverted it. Necromancy, by the interpretation of the mystics, is the evocation of the souls of departed humanity, for whatsoever end it is undertaken. As it is understood by the vulgar, it is synonymous with black magic, with obscene rites and dark, abhorrent practices. Professed mystics, however, have occasionally authorized the second view, which is only excusable by ignorance. Eliphas Levi, after having personally disturbed the eternal rest of Apollonius by a deliberate ceremonial evocation, indiscriminately denounced the whole art of necromancy as the blackest of the sciences of the abyss. When endeavoring to identify modern spiritism with infernal devices of sorcery. As a
Necromancy out of this book is really odd.
As a fact, the evocation of the souls of the departed is one of the most important branches of practical mysticism. It is one of the test experiments by which the mystic gospel may be said to stand or fall. If it be possible, after following for a certain prescribed period a certain method of life, calculated to exalt the intellectual faculties, to quicken spiritual perceptions, and to generate what may be called a new sense in man, if it be possible to enter into actual and undeceived communication with beings who have departed from this our plane of substance, if we can see them as they were, if we can, to some extent, know them as they are, and if, at the time, we are in conscious possession of our common senses, then the mystic gospel must be the truth itself. There are important questions connected with the legitimate necromancy which cannot be discussed here. If the pathological fact be admitted, there is a problem of identity to deal with. To establish the truth of evocations is not to explain all spiritual mysteries. In an elementary textbook, we conceive it is sufficient to indicate by what means the mystics pretend to place their disciples in communication with the invisible planes of subsistence. In the evocation of the souls of the dead, one form of procedure is, at any rate, comparatively simple, and a synthetic account, based, it is affirmed, on the ancient arcane theory, has been given by a French writer in the recent work on the Occult Sciences. It'll be the chicken in the oven.
Sorry, guys. What was I
Hang
gonna
on.
say?
I might go and check on it in a second, guys. So yeah, and that says necromancy, that's the subject. Got the Boop Brothers on. Hi all. Good evening, Ben and Lou. And we've got Mark on saying hi everyone.
Just to make you all, just to make you all aware, the Boo Brothers will be joining us again at some point again for their rescheduling on the interview. So look forward to that. I've just got to sort out a date for you first because I'm currently working like a dog minutes. Yes, we're going to have them on again soon. I'm also going to be doing a show soon on exorcisms. And I speak to a friend of mine. He's going to get back to me. He worked with one of the main people that do the UK. Again, privacy, I'm keeping names to themselves because we don't want to get in trouble for the information they've given me. Because sometimes they give it a stickler for stuff. But other than that, it should be good. We are slowly progressing forwards. I know this year has been a bit of a carnage. Unfortunately, my life got flipped completely upside down this year. We've lost a job and sort of stuff. And just carried on and on. But we are getting back on track, and the shows will get back on track as well. Thank you for bearing with us. We really do appreciate it. You guys are just amazing. Love your little baby. Yeah, and the chicken smells absolutely beautiful.
Chicken's cooked.
Oh, it smells like cake.
It does smell a bit like cake.
Yeah,
I did think that. I thought, why does the
chicken smell like cake.
yeah? What did I put in it? I put in like a little bit of a marinade. Just moving on past necromancy. Right, marinating your chicken. No, what did I put in it?
Depends if you do voodoo, because then you usually do, for some bizarre reason, voodoo always uses chicken. So at least you've got something to do with the chicken after. And when you've done your ritual, Luke can teach you how to marinate the chicken after.
I won't forget salt, pepper. Put a little bit of dark soy sauce on it. Well, with a little bit of honey.
The onion soy sauce.
Yeah. On cake now. What's your favourite cake? Anyway, where was I? Oh no. Oh yeah, the account by the French writer. Luckily translated. Prompted by sentient. Oh god. Maybe sentient.
Sorry for that.
You know that was going to happen. Did someone say that?
No, I've read the book, I know. I know where everyone trips up on it.
Prompted by a sentiment of profound tenderness, says P. Christian, it occasionally happens that a bereaved person will dedicate to perpetual mourning the room where a beloved being has expired. Like a holy place, the chamber is shut and sealed, to be revisited alone on the anniversaries of the joys that are dead, and of the superstition. Separation, sorry, I need to get back into it because I've just been off, haven't I? Been running around. Separation, which is final for earth. The soul, notwithstanding, can be occasionally attracted by the worship of the heart. Though unseen, it assists at the sacrifice of loving tears. And if it be the hour of dusk, if the departed intelligence be called on by an exalted act of faith and affection, made in the name of the Almighty, the brilliancy of its immortal essence may break forth in splendour for a moment in the midst of that restful twilight, wherein nature rests after the setting of the sun.
Yeah, everyone's got that.
Oh, this one's interesting. And at least it's not burned and you'll not have to use necromancy to bring it back. Try and revive it. You can. No, it's all good. The affection which unites us from beyond the tomb to lamented individuals must be entirely pure in its character. They are exclusively to be considered as the transfigured tenants of a more evaporated sphere, who in their new form of subsistence implore the eternal and almighty being to make us worthy of one day attaining to their own beatitude. The examination of conscience is another and as indispensable condition. If we have wronged our neighbours, the injury must be repaired. If we have enemies, we must pardon them from the very depth of our hearts. If we have neglected the sole exalting duty of adoration and prayer to God, we must cultivate regularity in worship, in accordance with the rites which we have received from our ancestors, preliminaries which are the best evidence that the evocation of the dead is not sorcery, and that it is not an unholy compact with the malicious spirits in the abyss of the world invisible.
We'd like to state here on the other dimension, we are not saying that all public church or public to go. Go to the pub, it's cheaper, it's next door, and it's easy. We get closer to spirits, usually about £2.50, £3.
You tell you don't live in London.
No.
That would be 20 quid. Or even, like, one end of Nottingham. Remember 20 quid for, like, 2 drinks,
Yes.
and one of them was a soft drink. Anyway, it is by these preparations alone that it is possible to enter the avenues of the unseen universe without danger to life and reason. The place chosen for the evocation is not an unimportant point. The most auspicious is undoubtedly that room which contains the last traces of the lamented person. If it be impossible to fulfill this condition, we must go in search of some isolated ritual retreat which corresponds in orientation and aspect, as well as in measurement, with the mortuary chamber. The window must be blocked with boards of olive wood, hermetically joined so that no exterior light may penetrate. The ceiling, the 4 interior walls, and the floor must be draped with tapestry of emerald green silk, which the operator must himself secure with copper nails, invoking no assistance from strange hands, because, from this moment, he alone may enter into this spot set apart from all, the arcane oratory of the Magus. The furniture which belonged to the deceased, his favourite possessions and trinkets, the things on which his final glance may be supposed to have rested, all these must be assiduously collected and arranged in the order which they occupied at the time of his death. If none of these souvenirs can be obtained, a faithful likeness of the departed being must at least be produced. It must be full length and must be depicted in the dress and colours which he wore during the last period of his life. This portrait must be set up in the eastern wall by means of copper fasteners, must be covered with a veil of white silk, and must be surmounted with a crown of those flowers which were most loved by the deceased. Before this portrait there must be erected an altar of white marble, supported by 4 columns which must terminate in bull's feet. A 5-pointed star must be emblazoned on the slab of the altar and must be composed of pure copper plates. The place in the center of the star, between the plates, must be large enough to receive the pedestal of a cup-shaped copper chafing dish, contained desiccated fragments of laurel wood and alder. By the side of the chafing dish must be placed a censer full of incense. The skin of a white and spotless ram will be stretched beneath the altar, and it must be emblazoned another pentagram, drawn with parallel lines of azure blue, golden yellow, emerald green, and purple red. A copper tripod, copper tripod must be erected in the middle of the oratory. It must be perfectly triangular in form. It must be surmounted by another and similar chafing dish, which must likewise contain a quantity of dried olive wood. A high candelabrum of copper must be placed by the wall of the southern side, and must contain a single taper of purest white wax, which must alone illuminate the mystery of evocation. The white colour of the altar, of the ram's skin, and of the veil is consecrated to Gabriel, the planetary archangel of the moon, and the genius of mysteries. The green of the copper and the tapestries is dedicated to the genius of Venus. The altar and tripod. Why do I keep saying tripod? Ah, tripod. The altar and tripod must both be encompassed by a magnetized iron chain, and by 3 garlands composed of the foliage and blossoms of the myrtle, the olive, and the rose. Finally, facing the portrait and on the eastern side, there must be a canopy, also draped with emerald silk, and supported by 2 triangular columns of olive wood, plated with the purest copper. On the north and south sides, between each of the columns and the wall, the tapestry must fall in long folds to the ground, forming a kind of tabernacle, which must be open on the eastern side. At the foot of each column there must be a sphinx of white marble, with a cavity in the top of the head to receive spices for burning. It is beneath this canopy that the apparition will manifest, and it should be remembered that the mages must turn to the east for prayer and the west for evocation. Great, how are we doing? We've got questions, Ben. We've got questions.
Oh, what we got?
We've got Zero saying, but what if he looked at someone who has also passed over?
No idea. It'd be, like,
Yeah.
a lot of it is very random when it comes to the thing with this is a lot of very Western necromancy that doesn't really follow the rest of the world's necromancy. This was a weird like bastardization.
Okay, asks like, has this guy know these instructions, or is he just having a laugh?
I think it was a little bit of both. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Before entering this little sanctuary devoted to the religion of remembrance, the operator must be clothed in a vestment of azure, fastened by clasps of copper, enriched with a single emerald. He must wear upon his head a tiara surrounded by a florated circle of 12 emeralds and a crown of violets. On his breast must be the talisman of Venus, depending from a ribbon of azure silk. On the annular finger of his left hand must be a copper ring containing a turquoise. His feet must be covered with shoes of azure silk, and he must be provided with a fan of swan's feathers to dissipate, if needful, the smoke of the perfumes. He's getting fancy. See? All
Yeah,
these
very
robes
fancy.
and tiaras and fan and
A lot of this stuff was pure bragging rights, and it's just it was weird how it all happened.
the oratory and all its objects must be consecrated on a Friday, during the hours which are set apart to the genius of Venus. This consecration is performed by burning violets and roses in a fire of olive wood. A shaft must be provided in the oratory for the passage of the smoke, but care must be taken to prevent the admission of light through this channel. When these preparations are finished, the operator must impose on himself a retreat of 21 days, beginning on the anniversary of the death of the beloved being. During this period, he must refrain from conferring on anyone the least of those marks of affection which he was accustomed to bestow on the departed. He must be absolutely chaste. Alike in deed and thought, he must take daily but one repast, consisting of bread, wine, roots, and fruits. These three conditions are indispensable to success in a vocation, and their accomplishment requires complete isolation. You don't get mediums doing this nowadays, do you?
They have to have fruit. Have fruit.
No, they're root and fruit.
Root and fruit.
Root and fruit.
Root and fruit and fruit.
See, mediums nowadays, lazy. This is how it was done.
Dresses up like that. Or, no.
Right then, OnlyFans, here we come. Send your request. Photos will be coming.
Mm.
And then Mark's is really hot. I'm surprised he can move all that he has on.
Not needed.
Every day, shortly before midnight, the magus must assume his consecrated dress. On the stroke of the mystic hour, he must enter the oratory, bearing a lighted candle in his right hand, and in the other an hourglass. The candle must be fixed in the candelabra, and the hourglass on the altar to register the flight of time. The operator must then proceed to replenish the garland and the floral crown. Then he shall unveil the portrait, and erect and immovable in the front of the altar, being thus with his face in the east, he shall softly go over in his mind the cherished recollections he possesses of the beloved and departed being. When the upper reservoir of the hourglass is empty, the time of the contemplation will be over. By the flame of the taper, the operator must then kindle the laurel wood and the alder in the chafing dish, which stands on the altar. Then, taking a pinch of incense from the censer, let him cast it thrice upon the fire, repeating the following words: Glory be to the Father of life universal, in the splendor of the infinite altitude, and peace in the twilight of the immeasurable depth, to all spirits of goodwill. Then he shall cover the portrait, taking up his candle in his hand, shall depart from the oratory, walking backwards at a slow pace as far as the threshold. The same ceremony must be fulfilled at the same hour during every day of the retreat, and at each visit the crown which is above the portrait and the garlands of the altar and tripod must be carefully renewed. The withered leaves and flowers must be burnt each evening in a room adjoining the oratory.
Because we all have partridge.
I'm thinking about it. Doesn't mention beards though.
Oh, you're not starting the beards, Dad.
We'll put flowers in his beard.
Flowers in my beard.
Flowerizing or floralizing. When the 21st day has arrived, the magus must do his best to have no communication with anyone. But if this be impossible, he must not be the first to speak, and he must postpone all business till the morrow. On the stroke of noon, he must arrange a small circular table in the oratory and cover it with a new napkin of unblemished whiteness. It must be garnished with 2 copper chalices, an entire loaf. Loaf of what? Yeah, it must be bread.
Garnished on bare bread.
And a crystal flagon of the purest wine. That's where we're going wrong. I do not have a crystal flagon of the purest wine.
Say that fast. Because you screwed saying that.
I know.
Go on.
I want it.
What do you want?
A crystal flagon of the purest wine.
Challenge anyone to say that when you've had a drink.
I lost the space now. Right, the bread must be broken and not cut, and the wine emptied in equal proportions into 2 cups.
You hear that? The bread, you're not allowed to use already sliced bread.
You have to tear it.
Just pretend sliced bread wasn't invented.
Tear and share, guys. Tear and share.
If you were flowers in your beard and
Join you.
just start an army of flowery bearded people.
Nice. So I don't think I'll bother. It's too much messing about. Okay, but a loaf being gluten-free, vegan, organic, locally sourced. Oh, dear. Oh, so good.
You imagine trying to do some of these rituals today, like in a PC environment.
Right.
It'd be nuts.
Half of this mystic communion, which must be his sole nourishment on this supreme day, shall be offered by the operator to the dead, and by the light of one taper he must eat his own share, standing before the veiled portrait. Then he shall retire as before, walking backwards as far as the threshold, and leaving the ghost's share of the bread and wine upon the table.
Never understood what. The thing is with a lot of these old rituals, and this is what makes me laugh, is some of them, a fair amount of them require you to walk backwards. I could never understand why you'd walk backwards, because surely you're going to trip over something like this. There's two rituals that I know.
Well, clearly your oratory is too busy.
There's two rituals that I know that are done, and you walk backwards to come out of them. But they involve a full ring of candles around you. And one of them is multiple layers of candles. So walking backwards over a load of multiple candles, just having to wear
Robe,
a
obviously.
robe of like silk and velvet, you're basically just turning yourself into a walking scarecrow backwards. I don't know. I don't know why it hurts my head. Okay, that's my ramble.
When the solemn hour, so really there is. What is the point really of walking backwards? It's
I have
just
no
a thing
idea.
of showing respect, or
All I can think is the people that did these rituals for seem doing this in 1,000 years.
drink wine, then walk backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. When the solemn hour of the evening has at length arrived, the magus shall carry into the oratory some well-dried cypress wood, which he shall set alight on the altar and the tripod. 3 pinches of incense must be cast on the altar flame in honor of the supreme potency, which manifests itself ever active intelligence and by absolute wisdom. When the wood of the 2 chafing dishes has been reduced to embers, he must renew the triple offering of incense on the altar, and must cast some 7 times on the fire in the tripod. At each evaporation of the consecrated perfume, he must repeat the previous doxology. Then, turning to the east, he must call upon God by the prayers of that religion,
Did you say whether it's North Cyprus or South Cyprus?
which was professed by the person whom he desires to evoke. No.
That's pretty useful, isn't it? Sorry.
Kate says, "Oh, your phone's rubbish, man. Everyone wants their Hunger Games spiders." And there says brings another meaning to self-combustion. When the prayers are over, he must reverse his position, and with his face to the west, must enkindle the chafing dishes on the head of each sphinx. And when the cypress is fully ablaze, he must heap over it well-dried violets and roses. Then let him extinguish the candle which illuminates the oratory, and falling on his knees before the canopy, between the 2 columns, let him mentally address the beloved person with a plenitude of faith and affection. Let him solemnly entreat it to appear, and renew his interior adjuration 7 times, under the auspices of the 7 providential genii, endeavouring during the whole time to exalt his soul above the natural weakness of humanity.
Not to do just for long.
Finally, the operator, with closed eyes and with hands covering his face, must call the invoked person in a loud but gentle voice, pronouncing 3 times all the names which he bore. Some moments after the 3rd appeal, he must extend his arms in the form of a cross, and, lifting up his eyes, he will behold the beloved being in a recognizable manner in front of him. That is to say, he will perceive that ethereal substance separated from the perishable terrestrial body, the fluidic envelope of the soul, which Kabbalistic initiates have termed the perispirit. This substance preserves the human form, but is emancipated from human infirmities, and is energized by the special characteristics whereby the impoverished individuality of our essence is manifested. Evoked by and evoker can then intercommunicate intelligibly by a mutual and mysterious thought transmission. Are you okay? You're going to have to come back. The departed soul will give counsel to the operator. It will occasionally reveal secrets which may be beneficial to those whom it loved on earth, but it will answer no questions which has reference to the desires of the flesh. It will discover no buried treasures, nor will it unveil the secrets of a third person. It is silent on the mysteries of the superior existence to which it is now attained. In certain cases it will, however, declare itself either happy or in punishment. If it be the latter, it will ask the prayers of the Magus, or for some religious observance, which it must unfailingly fulfill. Lastly, it will indicate the time when the evocation may be renewed. When it had disappeared, the operator must turn to the east, rekindle the fire on the altar, and make a final offering of incense. Then he must detach the crown and garlands, take up his candle, and retire with his face to the west till he is out of the oratory. His last duty is to burn the final remains of the flowers and leaves. Their ashes, united to those which have been collected during the time of the retreat, must be mixed with myrtle seed and secretly buried in a field at a depth which will secure it from the disturbance of the ploughshare. So, even it says here, can only tell you some stuff. It can't give you all the information that you might want. Isn't that right, honey? You gonna get some headache tablets? Yeah. Right. Not too much to go. Actually, probably get this chapter done tonight.
Sorry, guys. I'm suffering at the minute from really bad headaches. I'm going to leave you all loose and keep my hands for the final bit.
Yeah. And then we'll get this one done. It's not too bad.
I will see you on Friday. Hopefully, a better sleep than I am.
Okay. But Eric says, I'm surprised I didn't ask you to nail your nuts to the ground too.
That's a different one.
They'll be covering that ritual at a later date. The conditions of necromantic evocation, it will be seen, are somewhat elaborate. Yeah. They are devised for the legitimate exaltation of the intellectual faculties and for the direction of the force of will, but there is nothing which endangers the reason or beclouds the brain, and they may be fulfilled by any person who has a little money at command for the purchase of the requisite instruments, and has occasionally the privilege of possessing his soul in solitude. The Theurgic doctrine has made provision in the event of a failure. It recommends the renewal of the experiment with the additional precautions on the next anniversary, and affirms that the third time will never be barren of results unless the operator be oppressed by an inveterate vice which has become to him as a second nature. So they're basically saying that if it don't work the first time, second time should work. If not, third time will work. Or if it doesn't work at all, there's something up with you, basically. So it must be clear from the above ceremonial that there is nothing repellent to the most cultivated spiritual sense in the rites of lawful necromancy. It is otherwise, however, with the evocations of the infernal art, which the unhallowed necromantic practices of black magic, which violate the sanctity of the sepulchre and endeavour to establish a vicious communion with the souls of evil men. The rituals of infernal evocations are the outcome of certain psychological doctrines which prevailed during the Middle Ages, and are to some extent remnants of a very remote antiquity. Persons who died by their own hands, or who perished by a violent death, being separated from their bodies in advance of the natural time, were supposed to be more or less bound to the place where the catastrophe happened, till the radical moisture, yes, saying, of their corpse was entirely consumed. Such earthbound souls were easily attracted and abused by the sorcerers and black magicians, and many repellent and objectionable recipes for their evocation are extant. The skeleton or corpse was fumigated with mixtures of blood, milk, eggs, and other substances, and the deceased person was invoked with the usual adjurations of black magic, and generally for an evil purpose. These and other abuses led the Romans to the classification of necromancy with treason, secret poisoning, and other crimes. In a Greco-Egyptian papyrus in the British Museum, there is a curious necromantic process described for making a magical ring to bind a person in any manner desired. This ring, the papyrus goes on to say, is to be taken to the grave of a person untimely dead, and to be buried 4 fingers deep in the ground with the words, O departed spirit, whoever thou art, I deliver to thee such an one, that he may not do such a thing. Then having covered it up, depart, and you will do it best in the waning of the moon. The bibliography of necromancy is coextensive with the literature of the supernatural. For the ritual, it is unnecessary to go further than the directions which we have given. For the practice of black necromancy, the student is referred to the last division of Ebenezer Sibley's Occult Sciences. In general literature, some information may be found in Howard's History of the Supernatural, in Universal History of Apparitions, 1770, and in Young Sterling's Theory of Pneumatology, translated in 1884. There is also some curious matter to be found in Dr. F. G. Lee's Glimpses of the Supernatural. The recent publication by the authorities of the British Museum of a facsimile of the Papyrus of an Eye, the Book of the Dead, a manuscript which scholars refer to a period 14 centuries before Christ, will enable modern students to ascertain the nature of this celebrated work, which was intended for the use and the protection of the dead in the world beyond the grave. That's that chapter done. It was interesting. I thought it was interesting. How we thought it was interesting too. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts. It kind of was long-winded, wasn't it? A lot of pomp and rigor. But yeah, the end of the necromancy chapter. Now the next chapter, which we'll look to start in 2 weeks' time, because next week hopefully Ben will be doing a show on what are we doing shows on again? Are you doing the one on next week? Okay. I wasn't sure if you're doing another one on what was it you doing before?
Paradoxes.
Yeah, paradoxes. I just could not remember the word. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the paradoxes or the exorcism.
Okay. That'd be good. And then so yeah, 2 weeks we will go on to part 2 of the book where we start to look at alchemy. And the pups have found the plastic bottle. So yeah. Start going on to alchemy in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for sticking with me through that. I need a drink.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I had to bail out. It's just too much after a while.
Yeah. We hope you've all had a good weekend. We're going to sign off now so I can turn the light out for Ben and plunge him into darkness.
Yeah, be good, guys. Be safe, as we always say.
And remember to tune in to Friday's show.
Yeah, Fridays is going to be a very big one. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, guys, honestly, tune in for it. It'll be amazing. It'll be a good time.
Yeah.
That's it from us, guys. We will see you next Friday. So be good, be safe, and if you can't stay out for all,